And tonight we are going to talk about something hot. Yes? Yes.
Could be.
Yes.
Well, we were going to talk about what's in the way of having sex. Well, we
What
actually...
is the way? Well, one of the things in the way of having sex is not having a partner. Yeah, I'm joking, okay?
I know.
That's right. I would really not call that sex. You're having sex with your left hand.
Well,
Yes.
it was kind of nip and tuck there for a while. We were talking about that this morning, about how we were both kind of wondering what would happen if we split up, but we didn't split up. We didn't want to. Neither of us did, and so...
Yeah,
We
well,
never let it get to that point, but it was
okay.
tenuous, as I said. A friend thought there was a possibility that I might split up with her. Frank and I have lived apart for 6.5 years.
Mm.
Except with visits and stuff.
Except for visits now and then.
Yeah.
And she would come to Chicago, and then it got to be less, and then there was a big period when she was not coming. And then finally, when my father stabilized, this is the fourth time I've been down here in the past year, which is good.
Okay.
One time it was for 3 weeks, one time it was for 5 weeks, one time it was for 4 weeks, I think. This time it'll be for 3.5 weeks, so that's not so bad.
So, but the issue has always been that our relationship suffers when we don't, well, first of all, communicate, but I think having sex kind of broke down a little bit also. We would have it occasionally, but it wasn't necessarily a really healthy sex life. And
I'd like you to test something.
what?
Is sex a form of communication?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I get, yes.
And something that I had in the way was sex. For me, I had to communicate and create a relationship with the person, and everything had to be worked out before you had sex. It had to be perfect. This is my adolescent type view.
And this reminds me of the story with Mary. Am I right?
Right.
Yes. And then see, what I've come to realize is sex is a communication, and through sex, then you have relationships. You go on talking, or you don't. People have sex, they sit and they go away. Or you communicate and you learn more that way because you become physically in contact. And I've been more intellectual or mental, like to keep sex out of it, a relationship, and hold back. Would drive anyone crazy, and so they wouldn't want to have a relationship. You know, there's no potential there if they don't really feel it or see it. So that's
But
something
actually,
I
I
learned.
think that the sex is the ending of the good ending of a relationship that has just started. You know what
I
I
wouldn't
mean?
call it an
The
ending, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing in a relationship. Call it a good ending. You think, so that's the end of sex. Now we have a relationship. No more sex.
No, that's not
No,
what I
you didn't
mean.
mean that, I know. I was thinking of a joke about people they have great sex until they get married.
Yeah, no, come on, it's not like that anymore.
Well,
Fine.
when we were talking this morning, see, I guess Greg, I thought that Greg would, all the stuff that he's been doing, you know, besides being with me, was because, you know, I was losing an emotional bond with him, but actually he said that he was not as emotionally involved with the other things,
No.
and I gave it more credence. This keeps going off full screen, I don't know why.
Mm.
Anyway, but Bono, could you help me here? This won't stay on full screen.
It's got a problem, and there's nothing you can do about it other than keep.
Well, then I guess that's when it's going to be.
Don't talk about it.
So but I realize that I have, I didn't give up on a relationship so much as I just didn't know what to do next, because it looked to me like if I wanted sex, I had to initiate it myself, and sometimes Greg responded, and a lot of times he didn't, and in fact sometimes he actually felt like he was just keeping his distance a lot, and I didn't understand. When we've had sex this week, which was really, really, really great, but I realized that maybe Greg just didn't know, he said he didn't know things, he didn't know what to do sometimes, and so he was pressuring himself to be a certain way or figure out what to do, and when he was doing that, it was very difficult to stay focused on being sexual, and then I decided I'm just going to put myself in a state of being sensual
and sexual, which is what I do also, but it may take me a little while to get in the state.
That's right.
And if we can't talk about the state,
no,
because it takes me out of it.
That's right.
So in the middle of being sexual, if someone like you starts saying, "What's the matter? What's in your way?"
I have done that, which is really bad.
And, that's a real game changer.
That's right.
I agree, yes. Absolutely.
But when the flow of things come up, you're a little sad or some memory comes up, you go, that's part of you. Take that as part of the experience, and the communication is not always verbal.
Right.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
But there has been a reluctance of Greg, unless everything's just right. And I knew a couple of his other girlfriends, and they didn't know what to do either, because.
And the last one you knew was in 1980
something.
6, right?
That's right. Well, because I haven't really met any of the ones since. Well, there have been a couple of ones that made me really nervous, and I didn't like that you did that, but I didn't know them. But I've asked you questions, and I could surmise that their experience is somewhat similar.
Well, I think everybody has the same experience with me, is that I'm somehow withheld. I'm holding back. You can hear it in my voice, you see it in me.
Why is that?
Just because.
Well, you did.
Well, I've been saying, that's sort of facetiously.
You did talk about your childhood and what those kind of things meant, and that you really were, you really were in your household, that wasn't you had to be very careful and, about the woman, and, there was just so many taboos, that he.
Oh.
So many restrictions and taboos and ways to be that were probably all good intellectually, but you have to develop. So, and just the type of relationship my parents had was wonderful and loving and free, and at a certain point it got harder and harder, and my father was working literally all the time. It was other than eating and sleeping.
Okay, now, I want to ask you what you asked me at the beginning, and what's in the way of having sex? Honey.
It just seems like I have to climb a wall each time. And so.
Why?
Well, because I don't, I feel turned on all the time, and I want a lot of sex, and I get disappointed, and I don't know if you call it frustration, but I sort of feel a little bit like I'd like someone to pay attention to me, like I'd like Greg to pay attention to me instead of my always paying attention to him and his being reluctant. And so sometimes I surpass that, and then, but a lot of times I just say, oh well, you know, he's napping now, he's tired, and or you know, he has to go to his class, or you know, it's not right because you know we have to get up out of bed and I don't want to get up, or whatever it is. And he titillates me sometimes. He says, well, maybe I'll wake you up in the middle of the night. Never happens. Never happens. And so it's like the same thing as a tease, but it never, it's like you're a woman who teases a guy, you know, and never comes through. And so I get actually angry. I think I got angry, and that's, even though I stayed away for a year down here, I had things to do on the house here. In another way, I just, you know, wanted to have, I was angry at Greg. I just didn't want to spend the time sitting around there, you know, waiting for him to finish with all his classes and naps and accounting and, you know, all the things he had to do, which wasn't even about his father. It was just things, you know, that he occupied himself with. But Bayard also said something kind of interesting, which I never thought about. He said that maybe I just left and let Greg hang himself. Like he became lonely, and he went through the thing. He went to the dark side. He wanted love. He did all this stuff, and in a way, it was very risky for me to do that. But I just let him hang himself, and he.
Okay. Just if your behavior is functional.
Well, which type of behavior? I get no.
What you described to me. Can you guess? If not, we can get to the dysfunction page. Can you guess what dysfunction or dysfunctions are behind it?
Well, I think that one dysfunction I have is that when I don't get acceptance, just even a little indication, I start going into these behaviors where, like, I talk a lot, I sort of think about it, and then I back off, and I take myself out of it, and you know, this time I felt like I just kept trying to move closer, like pursue. It feels like pursuing Greg, but it's also just pushing forward through all that stuff and not stopping. But I would stop. And then I would say that it's dysfunctional because I kind of like used food to make myself feel better, and you know, I'd get lazy and there were so many things, behaviors, but the dysfunction was, what is the dysfunction? It's just a point, I guess, I wouldn't go past, and I just had all these behaviors to protect myself. It's like defending myself.
Okay.
You know, like defending myself against abandonment and hurt, and you know, that Greg didn't really love me, and that's why he does all these other things, and well, we should just break up, and you know, I just like didn't know what to do, and I probably should have just ignored all that and just moved forward and talked about it.
Probably what you should have sounds like dysfunctional self.
Oh, that's possible. Let's see, is that dysfunctional? Yeah.
So say, try to say what you did or how you are now, or what you're discovering. One thing you discovered was, we've been talking about this, is like, you were not, even how you were talking about it, you were pushing forward. You felt you had to push. You couldn't just be. You weren't getting from being, right? So you had to push forward through into me. Now there's pushing. There's also pulling or attracting.
Well, now wait a minute. Don't get. You're getting too
But, okay.
complicated. I don't.
But the thing we were saying earlier was about being feminine, allowing yourself to have more than just being this non-male, non-female, this person. You were just yourself.
Well, it was interesting because when I picked Greg up from the airport, I think I may have mentioned this before. Like I did, you know, dress with a little bit more care, and I tried to be sexier looking, and I did that when I originally met him. I was in a very good stage of my life where I was wearing really sexy clothes, and my hair was great, and I was the right weight and everything, and I was more alluring. So when I went to the airport, I thought, well, how could I just be more alluring? And then Greg took a look at me. He went like, wow, you look beautiful, you know. And
I meant that sincerely. It just was amazed.
I know, and he said that in that moment he felt like he could love me more. So I suppose what I did, which was dysfunctional, was I didn't necessarily, well, even when I was in Chicago, Greg, I did buy clothes and I tried to dress up, and you know, I would bring things with me that were more alluring and everything, but I just didn't know how to bridge the gap. I just didn't. I didn't know what to do. So then my dysfunction is I just get harder and more confrontive, or, you know, more angry, and I didn't know how to, I tried to talk about it probably at all the wrong times. You know, like when we're trying to go to sleep.
That's one thing I wanted to know. Have you ever talked about this between you two before now?
Not much. We're talking today. We've talked in the last few days. We've been talking quite a bit.
I don't think we've ever achieved the level of honesty or whatever it is that makes a connection that we have the last few days, and you know, I think what's changed, I don't know, just wanting to communicate. Well, one thing that changed, Greg, is that you wanted to communicate more. Like you never ever wanted to talk about it.
Since you were asking the question, what gets in the way of having sex? One thing for me was I didn't want it. Now, it's not that I didn't want sex, but I wasn't wanting it. I wasn't asking for it. I wasn't communicating that I wanted it directly. My MO, my modus operandi, was in my was that I would, and again, passive aggressive. We talked about this. You mentioned in another little, you know, thing recording. Was that I wanted to attract a woman who would want me. I wanted to be attracted. I wanted to be wanted. I didn't really feel wanted, and so I would want the woman to come towards me. Of course, it's very hard on her, you know, to pursue me, especially if I was not reciprocating. She would go crazy. That's what, you know, Granny was saying. You go crazy, beating your head against the wall, or climbing the wall, as you said.
Because, in my opinion, there is this stupid idea that it should be the man pursuing the woman.
Yes, where'd you get that idea?
Yes, I can't understand that. I mean, it can be the other way around without any problem. From the way I see it. Especially if two people have been in a relationship for years.
Yeah.
You know? Fanny, would it be a problem for you to say quite simply to Greg, you're looking very sexy tonight. I'd love to have sex with you.
Oh, it's not difficult. Have I actually done that? I don't know if I've done that as simply as that. I usually just do usually more movement toward him, like physical movement
Yeah.
without saying things, but I do tell him how
But
much I
that's part
want
of
him.
what you were saying about being more feminine, sensual. That you're saying the woman really has to be sexual because it brings out the man, supports the man in being himself. It's usually people look at the woman as being the sexual one and not the man. The man is just there, but the woman is doing that, but the man is reciprocating in being his manliness. It
Yeah.
definitely does help me. If you, and I respond to that. You say, you said this, and when you say you're really sexy or something, you said this like talking about the past when you first met me, I was very seductive and sensual because of how I moved. I was a dancer, I was a modern dancer, and I was used to coming from a full body and very physical, and I didn't think of it that way, but my whole being, my midsection was alive. And more recently, I've become more hitty. Partly from being around my father a lot, partly from just a choice. It was just something I did.
Right.
What was your reaction be, Greg, if Franny told you what I said a few minutes ago? Would you feel scared, or would you feel good?
I would feel, I feel good when she says that. And she does now and then say something, oh, your hair looks good. And I look at that and I feel good. She does that a lot. I know that she's attracted. She often says, oh, I want you, or I'm attracted, without saying, I want you and you've got to perform now. That's the other thing. That's the turn off.
Yeah.
Because that would have to change, and I can weather through a lot of stuff until things change. But it really helps that we both communicate, not just the typical things that people say, like, that are dysfunctional.
Yeah.
I don't get enough sex, Well, that could be true, but you have to go beyond that. I don't get enough sex, and I want
Absolutely.
that, without the...
So when you think, like, well, first of all, do you think about approaching, I think you think about approaching me a lot of times, and you want to.
And I did last night, but I was kind of tired, and I was in the middle of my dreams.
Well, what you did last night and the other night is like you just turned softly, and you became more sensual in the way that you were looking at me and everything, and I responded.
This is when you were asleep, but I, yeah.
Well, no, but you did it when
This morning.
just when we said goodnight. You just were very wonderful, and but when you want sex from me, I'm assuming you do sometimes. I mean, I'm not saying
Yeah.
that you never want it, but you never act on it. What happens? Do you come up against what do you stop at? Do you just don't know how to approach me? Do you think I'm not going to want it? There's like this point you stop and hold back. Am I wrong?
It's well, it's more that I have to develop a whole sexuality in order to come towards you. Yeah, I may have something going on, but then we're talking in other modes, and it's the urge, maybe it's libido, I don't know. It's not strong enough. There are other things going on during the day, or I could, I put things in the way, like it's confronting. I'm vulnerable to put myself out there. It's good to know that you feel sexual all the time. So there's the river is flowing all the time. I can just dip my wick in, just teasing.
It's true, though. I mean, I do feel ready whenever, and I know, like, there have been times when you just, you've approached me like that, and it's been so much fun for me because it was effortless, you know, for me. It was just great.
Yeah.
I think there is a very wrong idea that a man is always ready and a woman isn't.
The woman's always ready, or the idea
The
the man is always ready.
Yes.
Well, in this case, the woman's are always ready and the man is.
I have to remember that. The woman is
No, I
always
think
ready.
it's common. No, I
know
don't
it's a
think
bad-
the other way around.
I know that's a common thing that people think.
Yes. A man is a man, so if you undress yourself, he's ready. It's not true. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Right.
So, now you've been having a relationship for many years. Have you ever simply told each other that you want to have sex, that you'd like to have sex, quite simply?
Yes.
Okay?
But we never. It never.
I'm sorry, can we say that? We can say
No,
that, yeah.
do we say that? Yes, we have said that. Like every time I visited, every time we were together, every time I visited Chicago, we said we were going to do that. And a lot of times I would start out, before I got there, I'd decide like I'm going to start out on the right foot and I'm going to I'm going to hug and kiss Greg and maybe stroke him a little bit or whatever. But then the end of the trip comes and nothing really didn't progress beyond that.
Mm. Okay.
So-
Okay.
And Greg was telling me this morning that when he was doing all the other stuff, like he wanted to be wanted, and he went out and he felt really bad about himself. Like it was on the dark side.
It's not if I want sex, but if I'm with you, even tenuously, you know, we haven't seen each other for
Right.
a while, and I'm going out and not telling you, and I just have to be honest about it. I have to be myself. To be myself, I have to be honest. To really be free.
I agree.
And to live.
I agree on that. What do you think, Franny?
Well, I'm not sure what Greg is saying. I'm afraid. I'm sorry.
No, but that little thing. But that going out, I'm not sure why he said that either. I felt I was definitely guilty and terrible and did not feel good. But at the same time, I did things. I went out with other people. It was, that's the dark side, because why was I doing that? It didn't feel right, but it felt like something. There was like some sort of demon that I was working out. Like being the bad person, the bad boy. And I always felt that I had to be good, and I was good. And people said, oh, you're a prince, and this and that, what a good boy, and blah, blah, blah.
But you never felt like you really lost me. Is that true?
No.
So that's good. I mean, like you never lost me.
From your point of view, but even so, even if I did feel I lost you, it would not necessarily be bad, except that you might think it was bad. It is what it is. So from your point of view, as far as the relationship, no, I always felt I was in relationship with you, and that was my core and foundation. And I had this connection with you that was beyond.
And maybe I just see. I think that the dysfunctional part for me is I just didn't realize that. I thought that I had to be a certain way or be that I wasn't good enough. I just wasn't the right thing.
That's interesting.
You know, and that like that's why Greg was doing all this stuff, not because Greg had a problem, but because I was the bad one.
Right.
And
well, in terms of my feeling sexual with you, there's me and there's you. And you were talking about yourself, and I think what you hit upon earlier today about the femininity and allow yourself to have, not just be, I was talking about it as being more one-dimensional, where we don't take care of ourselves, we don't even try to be attractive. Now I understand, I said I'm used to that through being around the scientific community, and you just attracted to the person in the mind of the person, and that is something. You know, you can get turned on by intelligence and by character and all that.
There are many things, yes.
There are many things, but part of it is the feminine. I definitely am attracted to someone who has verve and has an attraction to her.
Let's not forget chemistry.
Chemistry is something. It's just,
It's important.
I'm not very sure what it quite is.
How can I say? You feel attracted to a person. It's not something rational. It's something purely physical.
Yeah. Well,
You understand?
I think it's more than physical, but physical gets very strong.
Yes?
Yeah.
So what's, in terms of Greg and me, what does that mean? Well, I've always felt like I just was very attracted to Greg and his energy and everything about him, and it was not explained by how he was or what he did or anything like that. I don't know how Greg feels. You know,
Can you tell her, Greg, are you willing to? You can say no, of course.
Well, I'm not sure what to say. I always been attracted to the total you. And I remember saying to myself, this was back in 1982 or 83, something like that. I said, gee, any guy, the guy who was with Franny is really lucky because she's going to make him a winner. Because she's just a winner. She's got everything. And so I count my lucky stars that you like me and you love me. It's a revelation to me, and it's dawning upon me that I am loved, and I can love in return and let that love in. Because to me, it was, like, sort of, I believed in love, but it was romantic love. I had to go out and produce it, and do this thing where infatuation reminds me of someone else we talked to a lot who lives in the western part of the U.S. And then there was just the general love of being someone, loving someone. But I can have all of it, both of it. And that's what I started out with, saying what's in the way is I didn't want it. It's not that I didn't want it, but I don't want it. I don't make the effort in saying I want it and communicate and actually go for what I want. And that has been one of the things in my life. I have been there to support, to be there, what is wanted and needed. I will do this, and I will serve, and I can run things, I can lead things out of just it's what needs to be done. Do I need to be President of the United States? I could be up for that. I could do that.
Well, you did admit, like, one of our conversations before you came was that you finally, after I asked you a lot of questions, you finally said, yes, I want you.
Yes. When was that? When I said that?
Back in like June or July when we were talking, we talked every day to work, on just to communicate every day, and we went into these long.
Right.
My window has disappeared. Just a second.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I can keep.
That was, we had to follow up with that, and I didn't follow up. I it was very convenient for me to be out of town because I could then not confront. I could not.
Exactly, and that's why I thought that you left in the first place, was that you were starting to really have trouble sustaining your relationship, like whatever was bothering you, and then this thing with your father came up, and I felt like you just jumped on it and left. And that was that you manifested that, like, and then even when you were going to come here, you manifested your father getting really sick, and I thought, well, Greg is still going through it, but then you went through it, and we were talking a lot, and then you manifested being able to come here and really face it.
Sure.
I feel like you were ready to face it, and before maybe you weren't. Maybe you just had all this stuff going on, you didn't know what to do, and you were worried about stuff, and your father and everything else. And but anyway, you said you wanted me, and I know that there have been signals that you've given me over the years, and I've missed a lot of them. Like that one time you wrote me the email that said you missed me terribly. I didn't get it. I didn't get that you were having so much trouble with it, or even when you came here last time, I have no inkling that you were going through any doubts or whatever it was that you were going through, because you never talked about anything. You never said, this is killing me, and all you would do is bicker with me and argue like we were,
Right.
over the stupidest things. Like, and I couldn't take them seriously, but I just couldn't stand it anymore, and I yelled back.
Right.
Every time I spoke to you on the phone, it was like it would dissolve into this bickering.
Yeah, I definitely produced that. And you didn't see that I was just in really trouble, really sick.
I did. I'm sorry.
But you did, but you were close to me, so therefore it wasn't like what you might do with a client or with some other person that you're talking with and helping.
Well, that's
get
why
through, or
even when
But even then, I would yell at you because I didn't want to get well.
right. Well, I know that when I finally called you up and asked you, I said, well, what are you seeing somebody else? Like, it was like you were on the point of telling me something, but you never said it, you never said it. And then when you said it, women can intuit these things, maybe most people can, so I asked you about it straight out, and then you started telling me things, and I can see why the whole thing happened that you did, recently, and maybe you were not emotionally involved with it, but I'm sure she encountered the same things I'm encountering, and I'm beginning to understand. I can see a bigger picture, but I still love and want you, and I still am, really attracted to you and love having sex with you, and I want to clear up the things that are in the way of that. Just.
Okay, what do you think you should clear up? You were talking to your mind. What do you think are the things that should be cleared up?
Well,
Cleared up.
from my point of view, I think that I have to recognize that Greg, that's who, if he has a problem, that's who he is, but how can I say it? I just didn't realize that he was having difficulties. So now that I know he's having difficulty, I approach it in a different way, and I see where I had difficulties also, and I can approach that differently. And I still don't know how I can. Well, I want sex all the time when it doesn't happen, and then when we had really good sex, like I guess on Sunday, I'm okay for a couple days, it's not as bad.
Right.
But
Well,
if it goes on for weeks and months, then it's like really bad.
right. Sort of a rule of thumb, every other day of 2 or 3 days.
Right.
Or more.
What about you, Greg? How often do you need sex?
That's, I don't know. It's not necessarily sex. That will be determined. of your
Let, let,
case, but I'm
let,
just saying,
let's-
but more like the type of relationship that I have to have, where I am loving and I'm being loved.
yes, okay,
More than
but now
just
you're talking,
talk.
now you're
I
talking
think
about sex.
yes, I think I agree with
I
Rosella.
want
See, you're
to-
talking about how you have to be, rather than what is it that you really feel like you want, as far as
I'm telling you what I want.
okay.
I want
I'd
that
like
experience.
you to be very specific.
You want to be
Talk about
specific, that's
sex.
sex.
Yes.
Yes, and I was saying that, okay, that's probably answered that already, but I'll say it again. I don't really know,
Mm.
but, and that can be determined, but seems like every now and then, but like every 2 days, or maybe 3 days.
Mm. Okay.
It could be a little more often.
Mm. Good.
I've not been around, I've been living alone for 6.5 years.
Yeah, sure.
So now I'm back here talking a lot with Franny for 1 week now. I've been here for a little less than 1 week.
Yeah.
We've been talking every day. And in close contact, it would be different. Probably, it depends on how we were. And, you know, I could talk hypothetically about sex with anyone or sex with Franny, and that's to be determined. But we're just talking about every other day, and maybe we do sexual things, but it's not like really quote sex.
Okay, are you in your mental body now?
Somewhat.
Yeah.
I'm just, yeah, I find, well, just being, okay, I'm not gonna blame this. I don't like looking at the screen with lights in my eyes and things like that. And
Do you feel defensive right now?
yeah, because I don't know. I do feel, somewhat defensive. So I will go back to not being defensive. And balance my bodies.
You know very well you're not here to judge you or to corner you. We're discussing to help you. Okay?
You are.
I'm your friend, Franny is your lover.
But I'll tell you, Rosella. See, this way he is right now, this is what I find difficult to be with, because it doesn't
Okay.
seem like I'm in the equation anywhere there. Like I'm up.
Okay, let me butt in.
Okay.
This is good. What you're saying is right on the money, Franny, by the way. Let me butt in. I want everybody to test how many bodies does sex affect when you have sex? How many bodies does it affect?
I don't know. I get all.
Well, where's the rest of the people? Who's
I get all. I'm just
They're testing.
okay? Ross?
I get 9.
Yeah, I got 9. Okay. Now, it might affect all for them, though. Now, here's the thing. If you notice when Greg talks about it, and he's saying, I don't know if it's sex I need a relation. He does this whole, like, song and dance, and as you were saying, it's like you're not in the equation. Right, Franny?
That's right. He's having like this mental conversation.
Yeah,
or
it's totally
idea.
mental. And, okay, the thing is, like, Greg actually doesn't know when he needs sex. And when you were talking to him about his affairs and his other activities where he was going and having sex with women, if you listen to how he talked about it, he was talking about what he wanted and what he needed. It was all a head trip. Like there was no like driving feeling there. It was all this head trip. Like he was trying to figure out what to do for himself.
Well, yeah, because he's.
People are sick, they're suffering, and they're in this immune dysfunction.
Right.
Like obviously, all of his behavior is massive immune dysfunction, like syndrome, a mix of immune dysfunctions. And he was trying, like, that's what they're going from one immune dysfunction to another, trying to make this bad feeling go away. Where what Greg needed to do was have sex with you. And the bad feeling would go away, because that's what it does. It sex clears things. Like it's this melding, reaffirmation, communication, territorial. It has a lot of functions. And as you said, as you tested, it affects between 9 and 12 bodies. So I'll leave you on that. Now, don't get anything of it.
Thank you, Bayer.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
And so, I just want to
Excuse me, Freddie. Can you test, Greg, if you feel threatened?
By sex?
No, by this discussion, by what we are doing now.
I have a feeling of being threatened. Yeah.
Okay, can you remove it
Yeah, I have
and
I
relax?
have a feeling of being threatened all the time, actually.
Okay? Okay, it's important to know.
Yeah.
It's important. Is your feeling threatened trauma-based?
Wait a minute. What was the question you should ask before that?
Oh my God, I don't remember. Who remembers?
Okay.
I asked you if you felt threatened. Just that.
And then right
Just
now,
that.
yeah, right now.
Right now, yeah, right now.
Yeah.
By the discussing this topic in particular.
It's whether I can clear that, and that's what it was.
Yes, yes.
Clear it.
That's
That's what I want to go back to.
Okay.
Talking about it.
Okay, clear it.
I can clear it now.
Do you feel a difference?
I do. I was, first of all, I had a feeling of what's going on, not knowing anything. And then I said, well, I do know. I know what I know. So, I certainly have
Well,
put out something about myself that covered me from not knowing or being threatened. I put out
and I just want to mention to you, Russell, that he and I talked about this, like, even though he wanted, like, he made calls and he called women back and things like that. It was really up to the woman still to pursue sex. But I don't know if Greg, you felt satisfied with that, because somehow inside of yourself, I think you want to have the feeling.
there were times I wanted sex. I was very clear about it. It was a visceral, bodily thing.
Right.
And,
I want you.
but it was not sex in a relationship. I wanted sex.
No.
And of course, the relationship was part of it, but that's not something I would include in it. Therefore, it's not satisfying that way.
Right.
Yeah, okay. I'd like you
Like I
to.
said, be sexual, but
I'd like you to test something. When you felt the need of sex, or when it happens to you, if it's death and training is away, test if it's because you need to prove something to yourself.
it's not the words I would have used, but yes.
Yeah, he calls
Okay.
it learning. He learns about himself.
I would want to see myself a certain way, or
Right.
Okay.
yeah, I would want to So I would just, it was a dysfunction, which was immunizing. We talk about an immune dysfunction, immunizing myself to the feelings I was having of being alone and somewhat depressed and grieving. So I looked for a way to change my life in some way.
After you have removed the immune dysfunction,
Yes.
what is the difference?
One thing I'm just not feeling about myself the same way. I don't feel threatened right now.
Okay,
I feel whole.
good.
Um, I know who I am.
Yeah,
And a moment ago I was saying I don't know who I am. Essentially I've been saying the whole time, how many times do you have to have sex? I don't know. I feel open. I feel grateful to you, all you here. I'm grateful to you, Franny, for sticking with me. I'm not in a adversarial position with you.
Uh-huh.
Even though I was on the phone call, I was involved in the phone call, I still felt separate, like I'm sitting here relating to you, rather than just being myself with you. I'm somewhere I'm relating, and I have to look at the camera here, even though it's a tiny little pinhole that's this big. I feel good bodily. I have good sense of myself.
good.
I have very clear signals right now for people who are learning the test. I have had oh, it's behind you. Oh, good. I have something on, I guess.
Cannot see Bart.
I can't. Okay.
We're going to need to complete.
All right, good. So I've had various levels of signals, and this is very clear, full signal right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
Well,
So
I don't want to
we're
be
gonna complete.
I don't want to be presumptuous, but I think that there's something in here that could still be worked on some more.
Yeah, next session.
okay.
Next session. Because
Want to say what it is?
well, the way that when you felt threatened and you got through it a little bit this time, but there is this hesitation and this uncertainty about what is right or what you want. That is what really isn't, for me, is in the way. Like, that stops you cold from having sex. Whatever you're going through, it might even be more than I even know. It feels like that stops you. Like, you just, you get in this state, and you even look the same. You feel, it's like, I can feel my anxiety rising in response, like, oh no, how am I gonna, what am I gonna, like, how do I fit in here, what do I do? So, anyway, we could work some more on it, next time.
I think that many men are affected by performance anxiety.
Yeah, I think So.
Well, yeah, I feel I have responsibilities and things that I do that I don't necessarily want to do if I've given my druthers. As I said before, I do them because they're there.
Can you test if performance anxiety is a dysfunction related to sex?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Franny, can you test if you have that dysfunction?
Anxiety performance?
Yeah?
No.
Okay. Greg, yes?
Again, test what?
Excuse
Do you
me.
have a
You gotta go.
performance?
Excuse me.
We have to get off.
What I have to, Ross? Ross,
Yes?
can you hear me?
Of course.
Okay, well, a moment ago I was saying that you need to complete.
Yes.
That's what I'm.
Now, that doesn't mean you
Okay.
have to hang up right now, but starting new lines of inquiry isn't really the way to complete. So get complete on this session. And
Okay.
you know, and then you'll have plenty of things to work on with Greg, I guess, on Friday when you meet with him then. Okay,
Yes.
so go ahead and do
Okay.
that now.
We were at a good. I
Okay.
think we're at a good.
You're at a
completion.
good point, right?
We're at the point
Yes, okay.
because Greg, you did get something. You got through something, which is good. You know. So.
You have some work to do, and your homework, Greg, is to test if you have that dysfunction, performance anxiety, and if yes, remove it, okay? And then we'll meet, well, first of all, we are going to meet
So are
on
you there
Friday.
recording now?
You can tell me if you
Okay,
prefer Wednesday or Thursday.
Okay, great. So I'm going to call you in
I'm finding it hard to hear
Okay, I'm
because.
going to call you on Skype in a couple of minutes. Now, do you guys have
Okay.
your handhelds? Did you get my text?
Okay,
message?
we're done. So we finished. Say ciao, sayonara, arrivederci.
Okay,
au
thank you
revoir.
very
And
much.
do me a favor.
Thank you, Rosella.
And
Bye-bye.
you, I love you both.
I love you too.
Bye.
Bye bye.
I love all four of you.